Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Board Games, where we pretty much just discuss things that are going on, as well as some mini reviews of games that we've been playing.
Yeah, we have 5 different games we're going to talk about. The theme for this one, now they're not all tied together in any particular theme.
Sure.
These are games that came out back in 2022, and we finally have an opportunity to kind of talk about them.
That's right. There's a lot of Gen Con madness kind of going around on the internet. People are very excited about Gen Con, which is coming up next week. And so before we start on the 2023 games, we wanted to discuss some games that we haven't been able to talk about that were released in 2022. Board gaming moves so quick. We have not been able to play all of the games that came out in 2022.
No.
These are only going to be 5 of them, but we're going to do our best to try to play all the ones that we have before the end of the year, because the 2023 games are releasing very shortly.
It's just, they kind of just stack on top of each other.
They do.
You all know how it goes. But we still have them in the back of our mind.
Yes.
We're trying to play through them as much as we can. And then whenever we do, we'll report back here and talk about them.
But first, our friends over at the Meeps are celebrating Meeple Day this month. And so they're having a large sale on their web store, which includes the Dexter Coin shirt, which is the only Before You Play merchandise that exists currently.
This is our only one that we have. It's on themeeps.co. We've actually talked about this company in a previous episode before. So this whole month there is a discount, I believe, site-wide. This is not a sponsored video or anything like that, but we just wanted to bring awareness to this.
Yes, and I am wearing, I believe, the Tulip Meeple shirt. And so this, as well as the Dexter Coin shirt, come in a variety of different sizes and different styles, including women's crop tops, as well as a zippered hoodie. We've included a link to the web store in the description below, but we are also holding a giveaway for one of our Dexter Coin shirts, as well as an accessory from the store. If you would like to enter, just leave a comment down below with hashtag #MeepleDay, and we will choose a winner in about a week. We'll include all the details about the giveaway in the description below, just so you know it is US only, but no purchase necessary and all that.
Yes, beware of spam bots out there. You'll see them with our fake profile pic with a bunch of random letters saying, "Hit me up on Telegram."
Yeah,
do not do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. We'll try to delete them as we see them, but so you never know. Just be cautious of that.
And thank you so much to Luna from the Meeps for hosting this giveaway. Now, before we get to the games, it's been a while since we've discussed just kind of things that are coming up on our channel. Gen Con is really alive right now, and so I don't know that we're going to make a full 10 list. We are planning a special collaboration with a content creator this coming weekend, and if all goes well, then you can anticipate that video going live, and we'll be discussing some things about Gen Con there. But otherwise, neither of us are attending this year. If you have any games at the top of your list that you'd like to share, please leave a comment down below, because we'd love to hear what games you all are excited about.
Yeah, a lot of these games are going to be also the ones that are going to be part of the Essen release, so it's a little bit earlier. But we don't have plans to go to both Gen Con or Essen, but hopefully Monique will be attending PAX at the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll see. But coming up on our channel over the next week, we are going to be covering a few Gen Con games. We're going to be doing some tutorial videos, namely, about 3 of them, so you can keep an eye out for those. And we do have a few titles that are releasing at Gen Con that we're going to be playing over the course of the week, and then maybe we'll be able to put out another Let's Talk Board Games episode next week.
Now, lastly, we did finish up the last playthrough in the Uwe Rosenberg series. We finished up with Oranienburger Canal, which was a surprise to us. We weren't sure if we were going to cover it, but we fortunately were able to get a copy of it. Now, we had plans to do the Uwe Rosenberg wrap-up video within this about week, about the release of this video.
But
I think we didn't realize that we had done about 17 or 18 games that were not the Tile Lane games. So we also did those videos. So we wanted to do kind of a more accurate kind of side-by-side matchup kind of comparison and in order to arrive at our top 18, I guess, games.
We wanted to do this right, basically. We were looking at all the games and we were thinking, oh my gosh, how do we truly make a ranking of this without just subjectively, just making it up. So Naveen had this idea that let's just put it into PubMeeple.
PubMeeple's great for this.
Do it right, plan out the video properly. And so that takes a bit of time because Naveen has a full-time job.
I do.
So he has to do this when he's not working. But stay tuned because it is coming soon. All right, so let's talk about some games.
Sure.
Now, we do need to mention that all of the games that we're featuring today were sent to us as review copies by the publishers. All right, so starting with the first game, which is a trick-taking game, and it is called Tatsu.
Tatsu.
Again, all of these games were published last year. This is designed by Wolfgang Werner and published by Matago, and this is a quite unique trick-taking game.
Very different.
Very
Yes.
different. The theme of the game is there are two rival clans, spirit clans,
Sure.
who are trying to capture spirits.
Score the most points.
Score the most points.
Yes.
It is a very unique sort of theme. And so this game is for 2 to 4 players. The first time we played it was in Japan with Amy and Maggie. We brought it with us and we played it as a 4-player game. And when you play it at 4 players, you play in 2 different teams with your teammate sitting across from you. And so the way that the game works is the deck has 2 different sets of cards, each belonging to the different clans. There's the red clan and then there's the yellow clan. And each set of cards has number values as well as the amount of points they're worth right below. And you also have 3 different cards that are multipliers for your clan. You have a 1x, 2x, and 3x. And so during setup, you actually shuffle all the cards together and you deal them out to the players so that when you have your hand of cards, you're probably going to have a combination of the red and yellow cards in your hand. The object of the game is for you as a team to collect the most amount of points by winning tricks, as well as your own clan's multipliers. Because if at the end of the round you don't have any, you were not able to win any of your multiplier cards that belong to your team's color, then you don't score any points.
Yeah, because you're essentially multiplying by 0. So you need to get at least one of your multipliers to have any of your points have any relevance.
Exactly. So you're trying to win your multiplier cards while also trying to take away the opponent's team's multipliers so that they don't get them, if that makes sense. Now, the way that the game actually plays is quite strange. On your turn, you either play a card from your hand that belongs to your own clan. So if I'm on the yellow team, I would have to play one of the yellow cards in my hand, or I would choose somebody else around the table, including my opponents, to play a yellow card from their hand in front of me.
Yeah, and you know that they have one because the cards literally, you can see on the backside, oh, they have a yellow card.
Yeah.
You don't know what the value might be, but you know that they have something.
Right. And so there's also a card counting part of the game because you're definitely going to want to know what the chances are of your opponents having the multipliers or having even just the higher scoring cards, because the lower the value on the card, the higher the number of points. And so once a card is played in front of you, either from your own hand or from somebody else's hand, then it goes to the next player who will do the same thing. So if Naveen's on the red team, he'll play a red card from his hand or ask somebody else to play a red card in front of him.
Which
from
could
their
even be
hand.
my own teammate. If I'm looking down at
Right.
my cards and I'm like, we really need to win this, I'm last to go, and I don't have a card that's of high enough value to win this trick, then I can maybe hope that my teammate will, because my teammate's not going to purposely throw a really low value one of our cards. They're going to want to throw a big one, knowing that we want to win that trick.
Because in order to win the trick, you just have to have played the highest value card in the middle of the table.
Yep.
Like I was mentioning earlier, the higher the value of the card, the lower the number of points. So you really want to time it right to kind of see what cards have been played and how many points are actually showing in the trick. Does that make sense?
Maybe you've accumulated points earlier in the round and you're like, our multiplier card is in there.
Yeah.
We need to win this one. Otherwise, all that work that we've done is gone for nothing.
Right.
So you have to really time and kind of hold back your really valuable cards that don't have any significant points on them, but you have to be able to put them out into play at the right time.
And like I was mentioning, there's also one fusion card per team. And just generally, the way that that works is if there's a fusion card in play, you don't actually score the trick. You play another trick on top of that. And whoever wins the second trick wins all the cards in both tricks. So it is quite a unique game, as you can tell. The first time we played it, everybody was like, I have no idea how to play this.
Strategy-wise, it was like, so you're going to play a card for me, but you're not on my team, and you're last to go, so that's bad. Like, but because you never know. Like, maybe I can be on the red team, and just by the random draw, I could have a ton of your colors and very little of mine. So I'm like, I guess I'm the one that's just going to be trying to dump, and so. Yeah, it's kind of wonky in that way, but there's something interesting here, but there's also an element of like, I'm not in control enough sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost difficult to form an opinion on it because of that feeling.
Yeah.
It's like, I like what it's doing. I like what it's getting at. And I think in general, I think I liked it the most. But there's this bit of it that feels like I don't have full control You can card count. It has very, very clever kind of a strategic manipulation, I guess. But you do run into moments where I feel like I don't have control when I really should have had more control over that.
It's like we'll play it, and I'm interested to get back to it, and then when I play it, it's just for some reason it's not like sparking like oh man, aha, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not one that I want to really get rid of. It's still one that I want to still continue to try to develop more like strategy in it, because I think there's something deeper there.
It's almost like if I play it more, maybe I can unlock that aha moment, right?
And we've played it quite a few times.
Yeah.
We have not played it at 3 players.
We have not,
We've played it at 2 players, which has a little bit of a different thing where you lay some cards out in front of you.
Yeah, you lay cards in a row face down, and on top of them, you lay cards face up. And you can only play from the face up cards, so you can see what your opponent has. So
I know you have
becomes
those cards, yeah.
a different way to play.
It does, yeah.
In general, the way that the actual round works is still the same. It's just the way that your hand is formulated and how you can play your hand that's different.
I will say in our plays in the 2-player, sometimes it just felt that one player had really no agency on their turn.
Yeah,
but at the 4-player game, I think that is exactly where this game is supposed to shine.
Yeah, I was going to say that feeling of not having control in a 4-player game is worsened, I think, in a 2-player game. So I would think that this is pretty much a 4-player game.
Yeah.
That's probably how it was intended to be. So anyway, that is Tatsu. I would be very curious to know if anybody else has played this and what your thoughts are on it, because it is quite unique. This is one that is going to stay in our collection. I want to play this more and more to see what else is going on here, right?
Teach-wise, it's very simple with the cards in hand. Obviously, like when we're describing it now, it might not sound kind of as intuitive, but when you have the cards and you're looking at them, you can easily get up and running in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was difficult to learn, though, because of the concept of somebody else is playing a card for me, right?
Because we were learning it all on our own together. We just opened the rule book, and then now you're trying to explain it. But now that we know how to play it, I think it's easier to then convey it and get up and running to even a new player.
Yeah. So anyway, that is Tatsu.
Yep. Okay, the next game we want to talk about, this is a 2-player only area control style game, and it is called Basilica.
Yes.
Basilica is published by Portal Games and designed by Lucas Pagoda. And this one, the theme is you are working together but competing against each other to build up the Duomo in Florence, Italy.
We think it's a Duomo. It's a cathedral.
Pretty sure this is a Duomo right here.
Yeah, this is an area majority game for only 2 players. I believe it was on one of our lists last year.
It was on the radar, on Watch It Played. This was on the radar before we played this.
That's right. And so in this game, like we were mentioning, we are building the shared cathedral. And so it's actually quite simple. On your turn, you're pretty much going to take one of the available vault tiles. They're called vault tiles, and you're going to place it into the cathedral. The vault tiles are color-coded because once you go into scoring, we're going to be scoring for adjacent areas of a single color. After you place a vault tile, one of the available actions that you can take is placing out one of your builders on the tile that you just placed. Each player has 5 builders, and this is how you're going to account for area majority during scoring.
Right.
In addition to just placing up vault tiles, there is a third type of action that you can take, which is executing an order, I think it's called, because on the opposite side of the vault tiles is a certain action that you can do. And they're going to range from like moving a tile from one area to another, or
messing around with basically everything that we are each doing.
Yes.
So like if I'm like, oh, Monique has a really big blue area, maybe I can use an action
to destroy that.
Destroy that in the sense that it's like, oh yeah, I know you're going to get 6 points here. Why don't we just cut that off and make that just worth 2 points now?
Right.
So there's like a lot of like this kind of going back and forth where it's like you're trying to one up each other to score the most amount of points, because at the end of the round, if you have a majority of an area, you get to score 1 point for each tile of that matching color in the area. If you happen to also be in there and you get second place, then you're only going to score 1 point per one of your builders in there.
Yeah, one of your own builders.
One of your own builders there.
In that area.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like jockeying for position. It's like, this seems like, okay, I got this. Like, she's not going to ruin this for me. And then there's a lot of different unique actions in there where it's like, oh no, she's gonna do it, and then she's, so it's clever in design.
There are other mechanisms that we did not mention, such as the ability to upgrade. I believe it's like upgrading one of your builders to a certain, I forgot what the terminology is.
Yeah, you can make like one of your builders worth 2x on area control.
Yeah, each player has a certain number of chits that each do a different thing, and you basically choose from one of the chits to apply it to a builder, and now it has this characteristic to it, which is like Naveen was mentioning. But there are no rounds. There are only only scoring rounds. You're going to score 3 times throughout the game. And so there is like a queen pawn that's going to be moving across the track each time you do something. And as soon as it gets to the end, then you score immediately.
Yeah, and that's also a little bit of the gamesmanship in the game because certain tiles, whenever you take it and place it into the Basilica, that actually moves that queen pawn. So if you're like, I want to just end this now because I think I'm in a better position to score.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to get as many of these queen pawn moving tiles in play.
Right.
But also being aware that, hey, I need to get this area majority.
Yeah, so there's a timing aspect to it. And we didn't mention, but on your turn, you're taking 3 of those actions that I just described, but you're taking any 3 combination. You don't have to do all 3 of them. You can place out 3 vault tiles on your turn if you wanted to. But placing out a builder has to always follow an action that allows you to place out a vault tile.
Right, and you only have 5 of them, so you have to be aware as to like, is it really worth it to go into this one isolated zone? How much can I build around this? A big part of this game is once you see that somebody is building and you want to put a vault tile down, you can put the vault tile basically anywhere you want as long as it's kind of orthogonally adjacent to another tile. So if Monique recognizes, oh, he's going to continue building out this way, let's just put this vault tile right, this red one right here. No more place for the blue to go. So there's a lot of that going on in this game. So if you like that kind of back and forth, kind of quick, snappy kind of game, this might be one for you.
Especially area control, tight, mean style area control games. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And so in general, in my opinion, this is a very well-designed game. It's very clever. It's just very tight, very mean. So if you enjoy area control, then this might be something to check out. But neither of us are very big into area control games.
Not so much,
We still tend to play them because every now and then we will find one. We'll find an exception.
Typically, area control games aren't so good at 2 players, meaning like a game that's a 2 to 5 player game, and you play the 2-player version, you're like, this is a 2-player only game. So it's done very well in that sense.
Yeah,
I will say this is, we forgot to mention, this is actually a new edition of a game that came out about 10 years ago, also called Basilica. Never played the original, so I can't do a side-by-side comparison as to how this one compares to that original.
And the reason why I think we don't typically jive with 2-player only area control is because they tend to be quite mean. And I think you and I, we just don't like take that, with feelings of take that mechanisms.
It had that feeling, yeah.
And that's kind of what you need to do in an area control game, especially when it's just at 2. You need to be able to take away from people.
You have to,
And so we don't like the feeling of like building something up just for your opponent to take it away.
Yeah.
Now it is very tactical, so you can kind of foresee that. You can make that a part of the strategy when playing the game, but it just doesn't feel good to do that, right?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a really good design,
Yeah,
but for some
really good
reason, like being in the thick of it, I was like questioning, like, am I having a great time while I play it?
Questioning your life
Questioning
decisions.
it, you know, because I know I'm going to talk about the game, so I'm like, am I like really enjoying this?
Yeah.
I'm appreciating the design, but am I having a fun time?
Anywho, that is Basilica, 2-player only area control. All right, next up we have a roll and write. So this is a game called Dungeons, Dice, and Danger.
Yes.
It's designed by Richard Garfield from Magic the Gathering fame, by the way, and published by Ravensburger and Alea. Now, this is a really neat roll and write because in this game there are 4 different style of maps, and you're basically going into dungeon and trying to defeat monsters. The artwork on the maps are really beautiful, and they're all themed a different style of monster, I guess. They're also themed and according to the level of difficulty.
Right.
And so the way that the game works is players will be taking turns rolling all of the dice. I believe there are 4 dice and then 1 special die. And then simultaneously, everybody is going to choose 2 combinations of the die values. So you're going to basically pair them up and add the die values together. And those are the 2 numbers that you're going to have to cross off on your map. Now, at the start of the game, there are starting spaces that you have to kind of branch from. And then as soon as you cross off those starting spaces, then you just have to cross off areas that are adjacent to any areas that you've already been to.
Yeah, because it's like a dungeon crawler. You're in one position and you're trying to move along into this this dangerous dungeon.
Now, the player who rolls a dice is the one who gets to choose to use that special die. So if there's a number that you really need to get to, you can use that special die. But there's also a lot of different things that are involved in the map. So you might be crossing off rooms that give you a treasure or a bonus. And then eventually you will encounter these monsters. And once you unlock a room that has a monster in it, there are certain die values that you have to roll in order to deal damage to it. There are also certain mechanisms like whoever is the first to defeat a monster gets a bigger bonus than everybody else who will have to defeat monsters eventually. And certain die values corresponding to the monsters have to be unlocked before you can actually start rolling them to attack them, if that makes sense. And there's also a lot of other extra mechanics that I didn't discuss that are sometimes specific to the map that you're playing, but that is a general overview, the general gist of what you're doing in the game. Now, the game ends as soon as one player, I believe, has defeated all of the monsters on the map. So it does take a little bit of time.
Can take some
What
time,
is
yeah.
the time on the
It says
box?
30 to 45 minutes. That sounds about
Okay,
right.
that probably is about right.
About that 45,
it does
yeah.
feel, for some reason, whenever I played it, it felt like it would go a little bit long. But in general, I think this is a really neat roll and write. It's very unique. This is something that I've never experienced before, and I quite enjoyed it.
I do like the mechanism of like splitting up the dice and like trying to plan a route where you're like, okay, if I go there, I need to keep my options open because like no matter what with these die rolls, I need to be able to always have some sort of option going into every single roll, so that way you don't kind of just get pigeonholed into one corner and you're like, I need a 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and that's the thing that I generally like about roll and writes, just across the board, the fact that everybody's doing something every turn. And so with this one in particular, there's a strong race element because you're trying to be the first person to defeat a monster or to just defeat all the monsters on your board because of that incentive. So you feel that tension in the game, and I also particularly enjoy the theme. Now, I have not played every single map. I've played the novice map a few times, the one with the bears.
I think that's the only one I've played multiple times.
Yeah. And I know that I have not played the hardest one, which is the dinosaurs, but I'm really looking forward to exploring the rest of it. We mainly wanted to discuss it because we have played the game a few times, and it is one that was on our radar, and it is just such a nice, unique experience. And by the way, Richard Garfield is such a rare
designer.
gem of a designer, right? Like, he's designed Magic the Gathering, King of Tokyo, which is a big, big game nowadays, especially.
Carnival of Monsters,
Bunny Kingdom, and now this, amongst a bunch of other titles that he's designed. And so all the games are so unique,
Very
right?
different,
Different. Anyway, that's about it. If you're looking for a more unique roll and write, especially in the land of so many roll and writes coming out every year, right? This is one to probably check out. It's Dungeons, Dice, and Danger. All right, next up we have another area control game. This is a big one that came out last year.
Big release from last year.
It is called Terracotta Army.
Yes.
This game was definitely on one of our lists. We were very, very excited about it just from looking at the cover, honestly. It's designed by 2 designers who are named here and published by Board and Dice.
Oh, yeah.
And so in this game, you are doing exactly as the title suggests. You are trying to build up the Terracotta Army. But at the heart of it, it is an area control game. So the way that the game works is it's played over the course of 5 rounds. And each round, there is this ring that's at the top left-hand corner of the board. And it is like triple layered.
It's like 3 ring circles that basically have different pie wedges in it, and you're going to be placing out a worker, whether a small worker or a big worker, and taking all the actions that are depicted within that little pie kind of
pie slice. Yeah, all 3 layers of whatever section you placed your worker in. So each player starts the game with 5, I believe, small workers. Now, the reason why this is important is because each pie wedge can only hold 1 small worker. So as soon as somebody places their worker there, nobody else can place a small worker there.
Right.
But there is an action spot on that ring that allows you to upgrade your small worker into a big one. And so you can place a big worker in a pie wedge as long as there is still a second space available.
Right.
So to clarify, if somebody places a small worker there, you can still place a big worker.
Right.
But if somebody placed a big worker there, then no other worker can go there, if that makes sense. So there's this like strategic worker placement aspect to it that has to do with placing the big and small workers.
Yeah, and then also if you're like unsatisfied with the lineup of the rings when you're about to take your actions and you see an opportunity, you can spend 2 resources or 2 coins, to shift one of the rings and try to realign things so that you have a little bit more access or better access to the exact type of actions you want to take.
Right.
In this game, I don't think that wheel scales though for 2 to 4 players.
Well, the important thing to note about the ring, by the way, is there's a middle ring and an inner ring, and one of them moves in one direction, the other one moves in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And when you spend 2 coins, you can only move it once. So it's not like you can truly choose what combination of actions you have, even if you have all the coins in the world. You can only move it once.
One way or ticket the other way, depending on which ring.
Right. And the actions that you can do are going to be, they're actually going to be pretty straightforward things, like gaining more coins or building a statue warrior, which is a whole purpose of the game.
You're building the Terracotta Army.
You're building Terracotta Army, and there's a whole area at the upper right-hand side of the board for the army. There are 4 different main types of statues that you're going to be building, and each player also has 4 different weapons that all come flipped over to their inactive side at the start of the game. This is important because whenever you build a specific statue, each of them corresponds to a weapon type, and whenever you build them, you can also immediately flip over that weapon type to do something else related to that warrior. It's going to range from stuff like scoring additional points and moving another warrior of yours somewhere on the grid. And these statues, by the way, are going to require you to spend clay in order to build them, so that is another type of resource in the game. But your clay has to be wet, so any clay that you carry on from round to round dries up, and there's an action spot on the ring that'll allow you to re-wet all of your clay.
Yep.
And then there are also an additional type of special statues that we're going to be building that do not belong to any player. And they all act differently too. So like there's a large horse that's like when you build that onto the board, it has to go where one of your own statues are, but now it covers several spaces in a row or column for when it goes time to score. Because at the end of each round, you're going to have end of round scoring. And basically each round, 1 row and 1 column of that grid is going to score. And it's going to be dictated by these little red tokens that are going to be moving throughout the game. And the way that scoring works is you just have to have a majority of your pieces covering that row or column to score what's called domination. And so whoever scores domination will score 7 points. And if you're just there, you score what's called presence, and that's 3 points. Right. So a majority of the game is just you trying to figure out what combination of actions will be able to get you the best situation, I guess, on the grid to be able to score the most amount of points at the end of the round and at the end of the game.
Yeah, and over time, those Terracotta Army figurines are going to start getting gridlocked in. So it's like I wanted to have this big, bulky group of my own army kind of built up so that I can score the most. But maybe somebody put a horse right in front of it, and it's like now I can't really get access to getting all my other like warriors to kind of connect. So you have to be very cautious and very aware as to like where you're building out these armies.
Right.
So there's definitely a strategic puzzle there.
Yeah, it's a big strategic puzzle, especially because at the end of the game, the grid scores a little bit differently. You want to have warriors who are of the same type grouped together with a group that's at least 2 or more pieces, because each of your warrior that's not a part of a group actually gets removed before you go into endgame scoring. So there's a lot going on here. For anybody who's into area control, this is sort of like an ideal game, I guess, for that, right? It is very, very clever. There are a lot of things that I like about it, but in general, this game is so frustrating. Oh my goodness.
That wheel can be frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, especially at higher player counts. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the wheel can really shut you out. The first game that we played of this, I think part of what I feel about it is because of the first game that we played. We played a 3-player game, and I think I was like second player in turn order, second or third. And just because of the way that the wheel was aligned and what resources I had, I couldn't even put out a statue, I think in the first round, something like that. And it was just super frustrating because then everybody else is just so much further ahead of you because I could not move the wheel.
You had a ton of clay. That clay, you had no coins, but your clay dried up. So then you knew, okay, going into the next round, I got to go wet this clay. That's not the action I really want to take when everybody else is already built out, you know?
Yeah, or it's like in the pie slice of things that I cannot do. There is an action that you can take if you cannot take an action there, but it's not enough to really get you going.
Right.
And so the rest of the game mechanisms are very clever. The way that the grid scores, the different special statues are really interesting and really unique, actually, the way that it works. But just that wheel. We are not friends, the wheel and I.
Unique in the wheel, no good.
Yeah, you, especially because the way that your worker pieces work and how if you place out a small worker, nobody else can go there unless you have a big worker, but there's only like 1 or 2 spots on that wheel to be able to upgrade to a big worker. So it's very, very restricting. Now, it is good also in the sense that the game is very simple to play. On your turn, you're just placing out a worker and then going down that action grid and taking your actions, and then it moves on to the next person. So it can be very, very smooth in terms of the gameplay as long as people don't have analysis paralysis.
There can be some AP because maybe just right before your turn, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this one spot. Somebody went to the spot, and you're like, well, there goes that. So now I got to retool. Or somebody moved it by shifting the ring, by spending those 2 coins, and you're like,
Yeah.
now that spot I can't do the thing to get to the thing.
Back to the drawing board.
How do I do this again? Now that's my turn. So there can be room for AP in this game.
Yes. So I think it's kind of a strange one for me because I do think that the issue that I have with the wheel is better at lower player counts. But because of the way that the area control works, you want to play it at higher player counts to really get the best experience in terms of the grid, scoring the grid, and the end game scoring especially. So it was a tough one for me, let's just say. It's very, very well designed, I do think, but it really fits a specific type of gaming interest, I think.
Yeah, I like a lot of the board and dice games. I'm a big fan of Tekenu, Trismegistus. Terracotta Army for me is okay. Like it's
you liked
just
it more
right.
than I did.
I think I liked it more than you did,
Yeah,
but in terms of all those other kind of T games, this one is not high up on my list.
There you go. That is Terracotta Army. We finally were able to feature it in a larger capacity than previously. I think in the past we've just sort of mentioned it here and there, but that is our experience with Terracotta Army. All right, the final game of today's video is another roll and write. It's a flip and write, actually.
Yep.
And it is called Get On Board.
Yes.
Now, this is a really implementation of a game called Let's Make a Bus Route that's designed by the same designer, Sashi, and published by Sashi and Sashi. They are a designer and publisher from Japan. And so I guess Aiello imported it and re-implemented it for the
there's a New York and London is this one. That one I
specifically.
believe is Tokyo. The one for Let's Make a Bus Route?
Oh, yeah, I that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if you're not familiar with this game at all, the way that it works is there is a board, and each player is going to be building out their own routes on that one board. And over the course of the game, while you're building out your routes, you're going to be picking up passengers such as tourists or business people or just regular passengers and trying to drop them off at their designated destinations. In addition, each player has their own private objective card that details a route similar to something like Ticket to Ride, where you want to get from a certain point to another point
by
on the board.
hitting 3 specific landmark intersections.
And if you can do that by the end of the game, then it'll score you 10 points.
Yep.
And there are also 2 public objective cards that you play with each game that require you to either pick up a certain number of a specific type of passenger or visit a specific destination a certain number of times throughout the map. And so the way that the game works is there is a deck of cards that you're going to flip one card from each round, and it'll tell you how many movements you can make and how many turns you're allowed to make.
Or must make.
That you must make exactly when you are building out your route. On their board, you can actually see what the different options are for these cards. So each time you flip a card, you cross off one of the areas so that you can kind of see what routes are going to be available to you still for the rest of the game.
And typically, it's asymmetric, meaning whenever we flip a card 7, I might have something that says you can move 3 times straight, but Monique might have to make a U-turn for her number 7s.
And like Naveen was mentioning, you have to make those turns when it says so on your thing, but there are certain rules that allow you to break those rules. Each time you choose to go against the turn rule, then you cross that off on your player board. At the end of the game, it's going to be minus a certain number of points, depending on how many times you did that. If at any point you return to an intersection that you were already at, you immediately lose the game.
Yes.
So there's that.
You need to take a very unique route the entire game. You can never double back. If you ever do, player elimination, you're done.
You're done. I don't think I've ever seen that happen in games that we've played, but it's a risk.
But just that it's a thing, so you have to be like, I need to take the broadest of turns so I don't get kind of stuck in this one little section.
Yeah. Now you might run into situations where you'll come across your opponent's routes, and so that is called running into traffic. It is legal, but you do lose points depending on how many times you did that throughout the game. So there are a lot of different things going on in this flip and write. Not to mention each passenger type scores differently, depending on who it is and where you're bringing it to. There's actually a board game arena implementation that we've also played quite a bit, but that is a general overview of what's going on in this game. Now, I will mention we have played Let's Make a Bus Route, which is the earlier implementation by Sashi and Sashi, and I highly prefer the way that they made that game. So in that game, you have one board, and you're actually drawing on it with like dry erase markers.
Right.
And so that concept was what sort of got people intrigued by the game in the first place, because you're drawing on a shared map.
Shared map, yeah. This one you use like little matchsticks in your own color, and you lay them down on the routes. So I guess it's like tactile, like you're physically like putting down routes and stuff, versus like if there's a smudge that happens like on the original game, you're like, where was that? I think I smudged this whole thing by like reaching over onto the shared board. So
and it lasts longer.
It does last a little longer. Also.
But this game comes with paper player sheets. And the other game also came with dry erase board.
For your own individual sheets, that would have been kind of nicer.
So I like that better.
Yeah.
But it's still the same game. It's essentially the same game.
Yeah.
We played both the physical copy as well as the board game arena implementation, and I highly prefer the physical copy.
For sure.
It's a bit small on board game arena, just so you know.
It was tough for me to learn it on BGA.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much easier when I played this a handful of times, and then now I can go on there and then play it because it's like, okay, I know everything that I need to know.
Yeah.
On BGA, it's like tiny little icons and little things, and you're like, I can't even see where I'm starting.
But it does things automatically, so that's kind of the positive.
Nice. Yeah.
Barring all of those things, I really enjoy this game.
It's good, yeah.
I think it's a unique style of route building, flip and right. Plays very, very quickly, and it's just fun to try to figure out those combinations of passengers, drop them off. And there's also 2 different sides of the board. I think it's dependent on player count. Mm-hmm. So obviously this one has New York and London, as the name suggests. But I think I saw somewhere that there's another one coming out that has different maps, I think this year.
Okay, yeah, that I don't know exactly what cities that is. That's going to be a standalone game, I'm assuming?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's about it, really. It's very, very cute. If you're familiar with Let's Make a Bus Route, this is pretty much the exact same thing. And maybe something to try if you're into roll and rights. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that is Get On Board.
Well, there you go. Those are 5 games that came out last year, 2022. Games that we've played, and we wanted to finally talk about. If you've played any of these games, feel free to let us know how you feel about them in the comments down below. We're always interested in seeing what you have to say.
As well as any other games that were released in 2022 that you really, really enjoyed.
One of the hundreds of games that you loved. Yeah, please let us know.
Because we are trying to not sort of jump straight into the new games as soon as they're releasing. We want to be able to play the games that came out in the last year, and then maybe even make a final ranking.
That would be nice. Yeah, I think that would be nice.
That might be what we do at the end of the year.
Help us prioritize what we should focus on, because so many games came out last year. Yeah. We do have still quite a bit of review copies that we have to kind of slowly just kind of work our way through.
And similar to us, you probably have the same issue of having unplayed games on your shelf that were released, and we always sort of. So get those games played.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Again, we are running this giveaway for a shirt as well as an accessory on the Meeps web store. If you'd like to enter, it is US-based only, but go ahead and leave a comment down below with the hashtag MeepleDay. And other than that, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video.
Yeah, if you like these kind of videos and you want to see more in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.